Okay, a little late to the party here, but Maduro's been captured. Now, someone that's met plenty of Venezuelans with my time spent in Argentina, I want to put my 2 cents in and tell you what I've seen on social media so far from all of them that I follow on Instagram. Basically, the night that he was captured, I know it was a few nights ago at this point, but the majority of the Venezuelans I know posted like a little heart or like a little Venezuelan flag, so they're obviously overjoyed at the prospect of it. And I called someone yesterday who's in Venezuela right now, and he said that it's awesome that Maduro got captured, but the real problem, and he agreed with this, is that even if you take out the number 1 guy, the number 2, 3, 4, 5 through number 75 guys, they're still going to be in the system. And just because you take out the head president doesn't mean that you're going to remove all the corruption and BS going on in that country with the people that allowed it that are still in that system. So even though the majority of the low-class people are overjoyed at this, it's not really going to fix anything in the immediate future, at least not without removing the systemically ingrained rootkit type corruption that remains in their government. So this is kind of a complicated take, but I'm going to try to put all the things that I have out there in my reservations, and I'll let you guys kind of make the decision, but this is the criteria that I'm kind of working with. So we can basically say that Maduro has like one of the worst human rights violations in human history. He's going to go down as one of the worst of all time. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just a fact. While it's not as repressive as the Soviet Union was, it's nowhere near the levels of North Korea. They allow people to exit in and out freely for the most part. So the travel restrictions that were very, very strict in the Soviet Union and also North Korea aren't present in Venezuela or even in like Cuba, but things are really, really still bad in Venezuela, like especially for political dissidents who speak out, like journalists, against the regime. They get put into political torture, not so much like camps like the North Korean prison camps or like the gulags of the Soviet Union, but they get put into like torture centers where they basically just get tortured. And the conditions there are just absolutely appalling. They get beat, they hardly get any food, probably no clean water, or minimal at least. So while it's not as repressive as some of the worst regimes on earth right now, it's really like communism light down there. I mean, you have to remember, things are so bad over there that there's 8 million Venezuelans that are not in Venezuela. When I was playing basketball in Argentina, I was playing with mostly Venezuelans depending on the time of day. The Argentinians would play at like 5, 6, sometimes 7 p.m. at one certain park, and then it would be all Venezuelans after like 7:30. And it was very obvious which ones were the Venezuelans because they were way louder than the Argentinians. So seeing that contrast and how those people were like living there, not necessarily by choice, but because they really just needed to escape Venezuela, was very apparent and crystal clear to me. So at least from the human rights perspective, this is a huge W. And trust me, I have plenty of sympathy, but this kind of runs into what I was talking about 2 weeks ago, actually, where I was talking about should we be joining the draft at any moment's notice to go fight in wars that like seem kind of justified, right? Like what if we are going to go defend Taiwan against China, right? Let's say that that's a very real thing that could happen, and that does happen. Should we be doing that? Well, this is kind of a similar scenario where, well, Venezuela's got one of the most corrupt governments on earth. They're pretty much like a decayed and fallen communism state. Their infrastructure is total shit, and it's really just kind of like a chaotic society in a lot of ways. But does that really mean we should be sending our troops to go overseas and defending foreign lands or taking away these kind of horrible people like Maduro and spending our resources when our own country struggles with so many things at this point? I'm going to tend to say no. Now, in this case, it kind of just worked out because we got in and out as fast as possible. I mean, this was like a few hours. No casualties. I think there was like an injury or two or something. I don't really know. But overall, this kind of intervention, I mean, great, we took out the president, but that doesn't remove the systemic corruption that's like attached itself to the nervous system of the country. And even though we got rid of the president, it's not really going to change anything in the future. Another cocksucker is going to take power probably, and then they're just going to arrive at basically the same sort of thing. So all this is like I guess you could say a short-term victory. It's not really going to change the chess pieces, and the cards might just be getting reshuffled here in the long term. So short-term seems like, woohoo, yay, this is so cool, but like, what does this really mean? I mean, for us to, let's think about it like this. For Venezuela to really have serious change, like let's pretend that the best case scenario for them was like the US boots on the ground occupied Venezuela and did what we tried to do with Iraq and Afghanistan and rebuild the government, right? The one good thing that could be going for that, and I'm not saying we should be doing this, but the one good thing that would be going there is that country is way more cohesive than like Iraq and Afghanistan, which have serious cultural differences. From what I understand, those countries had serious tribal mentality and were very, very divided, whereas Venezuelans have way more in common with each other, and you could at least build something there, possibly and allegedly. Now, I'm not saying we should be doing that. Again, I don't want to be spending our money to go try to fix some country that could just end up being a shithole at the end of the day anyway, but at least that potential, I guess, would be there. It's not really an adventure that we should be taking, but I guess if it's going to be that instead of Iraq and Afghanistan, it's a little bit better. So I don't know. I don't think we've put enough effort and force to really make any serious changes there. I don't really know why we did this, to be honest. We can say that it's the drug trafficking, and yeah, it kind of sucks, but a lot of our problem is with the Mexicans and that border. So the Venezuelans, yeah, they're causing some problems for us, at least from the government, like narco terrorist state or whatever they're calling it. But this just doesn't seem to really fix anything is the way that I'm seeing it. The last thing I'll say about this is this seems like something that was done like quite competently. Like we went into the heart of a country, and even though it's a very low-tech country, they still managed to get like this guy in a few hours and pull him out and bring him back to New York. So the amount of precision that this was done with proves that the US still has people that can do things quite competently or precisely, and it's just really disappointing that, you know, the military can do this and yet we still have so many problems that are just ignored in the country. So yes, we're going to have a huge budget for the military and all that, but if we have all this competence there, why not use some of that in our domestic problems? Because we have some serious ones that are coming up and we're just going to keep kicking the can down the road, you know? So I don't know, my overall verdict for this is, even though I hate world policing, I hate going out and do this sort of adventurism, I think that it was well done. I think Maduro is a piece of shit, so from the human rights perspective, total victory. Many Venezuelans I know are super happy about this. The Chavismos, I mean, somehow they still exist over there, but they're not happy about it. The left and the Democrats, how can the Democrats possibly be up in arms about this? This is proof that people have no fucking clue what's going on in the rest of the world. Venezuela is really not a good place to be. If you can get out of Venezuela, you should. 8 million people, I think they have like 30 million people in their country. That's like what, roughly 20%, 25% of the population that's out of the country due to migration. These people left basically because they were forced out. Venezuela is such a shithole. Like the contrast between Buenos Aires and Venezuela is like it's two different worlds. You can't compare the two, because Buenos Aires, well, it has its own problems with Argentina. They're nowhere near the level of catastrophic society problems that Venezuela has. And plus, how are those Venezuelans supposed to go back home? They have lives now. Some of them have girlfriends in Buenos Aires. Well, now they're going to be Argentinians, you know? I mean, what are they supposed to do? Go back and, you know, even if and think about how many years this would take. Even if the U.S. did sit there for years and years and held the hand and got rid of the systemic corruption, it's going to take years to reform that whole society, and it's going to take forever, right? Look at the difference between East Germany and West Germany. East Germany has significantly lagged behind, and to this day, those effects are still very obvious, even though this was well over, 30 years ago that East Germany reunified with the West. Like, once you shake and destroy the roots of a solid society, and you take it away for years and years at a time, trying to reunify with that is just too different and too costly, because the differences and the paths chosen between both societies have completely diverged and have nothing in common. So overall, human rights violation, this is a W. US getting involved in another country, not great, but at least they did it in a very efficient manner. It's not like we're sitting there occupying them for a long time. I hope not, at least. I mean, if we were going to do it, it would be better, but I'm still not in love with that. We still have so many domestic problems. And a lot of the people that I know from Venezuela that were in Argentina that I met are totally happy about this. So make no mistake, the Venezuelans love this. The communists and the dumbass Democrats on the left are appalled at this, and somehow, again, this was the point I was going to start to make, is the fucktards of today really have no idea how corrupt Venezuela's society is, with the torture prisons, the corruption, the colectivos. The colectivos are like these biker gangs that run around, and they have guns, and while they're not officially government agents, they basically terrorize the local population and keep them in line. So they're kind of like government-like shock trooper units that are just like scaring everyone, and they'll attack people, and the government does nothing about them because they're working basically for the government. So make no mistake, Venezuela is like a total fucking shithole. It's not as bad as, you know, North Korea is, but for people to kind of say like, oh man, Maduro was like good, we should have kept him there, it's like, guys, this guy's a human rights atrocity type person. For you to even slightly defend that shows how retarded you are. And this is part of the whole two reality system we have now, where some people live in reality, other people just live in delusion, and somehow we're supposed to bring our society, the US, which is so divided at this point, together. I mean, it's just not going to happen. We're going to have something serious is probably going to happen. It's like a dancing around civil war for us at this point, but again, this is about Venezuela. We're not going to go into my usual talk about, you know, U.S. civil war light at this point, but yeah. And then China and Russia always, I think they're not particularly happy about this, and it's kind of like, well, hold on a minute, you guys are full of human rights violations as well, so let's not pretend like you're this amazing country when the things that you do your own citizens is pretty rough. So don't believe the BS that's going on. There's a whole sputard ocean of baloney going on and sleight of hand that people try to do, but you have to stay grounded with your principles and look at the world as it is. This is kind of complex because of my mixed reservation. I told you guys that I was in Argentina for a little while, so I'm a little bit more sympathetic than the average person is, probably because I got sent videos. I'll put this one in the description that I really like, but I got sent plenty of videos about how bad things were in Venezuela before they had left and how they are today. And guess what? I am a little bit more sympathetic to it just because I'm more familiar and I know some people down there. The only thing is, I'm going to stay grounded and say we should not be doing this sort of thing generally, even if it was done expertly and precisely and it caused no political backlash, or the political backlash was minimal with other countries. This sort of thing can be kind of dangerous because we've seen in the past how things can get us rooted in other countries for a while, and then we stay there for tons of time, and then we end up being the taxpayers the one that foot the bill for it. So overall, this is pretty complex. In my opinion, it's mostly good, but also some pretty bad nuance. And again, I don't really know if this is a great solution long term, because you remove the president, how are you supposed to remove the systemic corruption that's going to stay there without propping it up the way that we would have done in Iraq and Afghanistan, you know? So I don't know. At least Maduro's out of the country, and it'll probably go away for a long time, or at least we would hope. Again, I'll put the link in the description of the video. Make sure you watch it with English subtitles. It's a video in Spanish, but it's really well done, and my Spanish understanding is pretty poor at this point still, so I have to watch it with English subtitles, but 99% of it is totally understandable because YouTube actually does a pretty good job of cross-translating on the fly videos of English and Spanish together.